So today I want to briefly introduce you to the rise of white supremacy in our modern day culture. I know that white supremacy has been around for a long time. We've been talking about this in race, but I have to tell you how it's impacting us today because we are getting into Black Lives Matter, and we have to understand the power and the empowerment that Black Lives Matter activists are creating in response to the rise of white supremacy today, right? There will be a video clip in the assignment called Undercover with the Alt-Right. I want you to know that white supremacy is not only on the rise in the US, it's all over the world. It's crazy. They are organized, they are well-trained, and we're not talking about those Ku Klux Klan members from the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s, right? This is a whole different movement, and they are well-organized, and it's extremely scary. So scary to the point that the Homeland Security has stated white supremacists are the greatest threat to America's democracy. All right. So I'll show you this clip later on in our notes. I do want to show you this clip real quick. Sorry of the bell. Of Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer is the guy who coined this term alt-right. The white supremacist today don't often want you to call them, they don't want to call themselves white supremacists, and they definitely don't want you to affiliate them with the Ku Klux Klan. They think that they are smarter than the Klan, and they think the Klan gives them a bad image. So what they're trying to do is rebrand this white supremacist look, and they're trying to get young millennials and Generation Z into this movement by making it seem cool. And they're focusing on high schoolers and middle school boys, white boys, who are lonely, who don't have friends, who get picked on and who get bullied, right? This is Richard Spencer. He is a UVA graduate, and this is him when Barack Obama got elected.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
You see the Nazi salutes, and you see the anger in the crowd. I am going to put this PowerPoint in our notes for today, so you can go back and relook at the entire clip. But I didn't want to spend so much time going over it. But it's crazy. That actually happened in 2008 after the election of Barack Obama. There's this increase of white supremacists, and it was led and organized by a man named Richard Spencer. There's other names besides alt-right that white supremacists use. They call themselves neo-Nazis, manosphere. They call themselves trolls. They call themselves white nationalists. They call themselves protectors of the U.S. Constitution. There are so many different names to them. There is a hate map that you will see on this lesson today. It's created by the Southern Poverty of Law. And if you click on the map, you can see all over the U.S. the names of white supremacist organizations. Now, in order to be on this list or on this map, you have to be organized and you have to be starting a movement. So it's scary when you look at it. You'll see all the white nationalist or all the white supremacist groups in the U.S. I want you to know this. We do have white supremacist groups in Orange County. Some of you know this because in 2015, some of you participated. You were in middle school at that time, and some of you have relatives who participated in the Black History program of 2015 called Black Lives Matter, and that received a lot of criticism and a lot of anger by white supremacists who organized themselves online. 2 years before Charlottesville happened, Orange County students who participated in that program survived white supremacist attacks, and they were threatened online, and they were threatened to be lynched and killed, and it was a horrific experience. But a few years ago, this was actually placed in people's mailboxes, and this is from literature from a white supremacist group that's active in our area, but also active across the nation. People in Loudoun County also got the same thing, but there is white supremacist literature being placed in people's mailboxes. I did not get it. My neighbor got it. I didn't get it. So somebody knows that I would not want to read this. So that's a good thing for me. But that also shows me that white supremacists know who they are targeting. And so we have to take that. But it's just lies. It's literature, lies, and they put it, of course, in people's mailboxes the day before Dr. King's birthday. Other key influencers is a guy named Milo, who you can see this clip. He is actually gay. He is actually engaged to a Black man. He hates women. And if you decide to watch part of this clip, like if we were in class, I would probably show part of it, and you would just be like, I cannot believe he's a white supremacist. They are rebranding their image, right? So he wears pearls. You wouldn't look at him and be like, oh man, he's a white supremacist, but he is, and he's purposely doing this portrayal. Now, why does he have? How can you have a Black boyfriend or fiance like he does and be racist? Because you can be racist and still date minorities. It's crazy, right? Because racism is not real, and racists are not usually smart people. So they can not put the hypocrisy together in their brain. The other guy is one who is extremely influential. His name is Andrew. He creates one of the biggest white supremacist newspapers read all around the world called the Daily Stormer. And when you watch that Vice News documentary on Charlottesville, you saw his newspaper guy being interviewed. So really scary stuff. Well, so what's the point of what's happening here? Well, white supremacists are extremely well organized. They know how to connect online. And they have started since 2012 to recruit white supremacists online. What are they using? Well, they're not talking just about hating minorities. They're talking about hating women, and that gets men, white men, into their movement, right? Because they want the white guy who gets rejected by those cute girls who feel like, somebody owes them something, or maybe they don't have a good connection with their mother, into the movement. They know exactly what they're doing. They are using tactics that have been studied by ISIS and studied by them to bring people into the movement. The second thing that they like to talk about is this idea of white genocide. Like if you don't join as white people, then you're not going to have working class white people anymore, right? They take on things like when we talk about privilege, they try to say it doesn't exist. I'll give you an example, right? They're recruiting online, and they have, as of last year, they have 27,000 Twitter influencers. 27,000 that influence what people say and what people think. And people don't even know that they're white supremacists because they're not putting under their bio white supremacist, right? They'll say things like, like I'm keeping it real, or just saying, these views, or, you're so PC, you're so politically correct. They try to create this online language that makes you think like, oh, they're just being, direct. No, they are purposely creating false racist propaganda to get people into their movement, or white people into the movement. They want to spread false narratives. They want to spread lies, and they want to spread like fake conspiracy theories, which you see right now happening with QAnon, right? Like all that taking off and people actually believing crazy stuff with no proof of it, right? The other thing that they do is they want to be funny. They want to make memes and jokes and desensitize people to things like race. That is why I am very fearful when people get on TikTok and they make things like, this is what white kids say, or this is what so-and-so, or, Black people say or do, because it reinforces stereotypes. And that thing that we think is humor actually gets heard by other people, and they think, oh, well, it must be true, right? They also want to create this look like they are the boy next door, right? Like they, as you saw, like in the Seville when the Nazis marched there, they're wearing khakis. They're wearing khaki shirts. They're tattooed up. They're muscled up. They look like, they're this cool kid. They want that look, right? The other thing that they use, their number one strategy to get people involved in their crazy white supremacist movement, is memes. And I'll show you those memes in a minute, all right? I want to show you this guy. Andrew, right? So what does Andrew do? I want to show you how he tries to create this boy next door look. So that's what Andrew would look like at a rally on the right, right? He looks like a white supremacist. He looks like a Nazi. But look to the picture on the left with the Make America Great Trump hat and his black shirt and the way he's looking at the camera and the way he's growing out his beard a little bit. He wants you to seriously believe that he's just a normal white guy, the guy next door, like you can trust him, right? And it works because people fall for stuff online, right? I also want to tell you an example of how they get people into the movement before I get into their number one tactic of memes. And that is by spreading hatred about women, right? They are anti-Semitic, which means they hate Jews, right? They're outright racist, which you know about. But one way that they do it is by trolling. And I've got two examples. The first one is this hashtag called Bikini Bridge, right? Hashtag Bikini Bridge. It was a hoax created by white supremacists on purpose. They all organized online. So since 2012, they've been very well organized online, right? And they had this website called 4chan, 4CHAN, and they would organize on there, right? And 4chan should have shut down and they should have stopped it, but they didn't. And they had an operation called Bikini Bridge. The first stage of their operation was to circulate images of women who have eating disorders, right? And they called it Bikini Bridge, because if you look down, and then you could, your hips would make a bridge. They wanted to purposely get women to start believing that they should become anorexic, right? And it actually took off across the internet as a symbol of beauty, and it took off by females, right? The second stage then is they sparked this fake outrage by feminists, right? And so they created this image, and then they created this fake outrage of feminists going against this image, and it worked. It created this battle online between groups of people that fell into the trap that had nothing to do with white supremacy, but just believed it. It became such a big story that news outlets like the Washington Post and the Today Show took it up as a story, right? And these white supremacists celebrated because it worked. And now they know how they can get people online to buy into their ideology, right? The second example I'm going to leave for you to read about, but this is Mrs. Taylor, right? She was trolled online. She is the first president of a college. And when people found out about this, they decided that student president, that they decided that the white supremacists decided that they were going to harass her, and they actually created a campaign. They harassed her so much and they trolled her so much on her own personal social media that other people fell into it, right? She ended up suing a white supremacist organization who led this trolling campaign and won, but it shows you how easily people are manipulated online, right? The other thing that they do is they're great at creating memes, and people fall for memes all the time. And I'm always worried because people are always quoting memes. So much so that even President Donald Trump uses memes to create our division of race today, right? And supports white supremacy. So if you look at the stat sheet online on his Twitter account, you would believe that black people are killing white people way more than police officers are killing black people. And that is not true, right? White people are getting killed more by police, but not by the ratio of black people. White people get killed more by police because there's just more white people, but not in the ratio that black people are getting killed. So those are just, look at that, black on black crime. That's just not true, right? 3 million violent crimes committed by white people from 2012 to 2015, according to the FBI, were, guess what? Were committed by white people on white people, right? That's just not a lie. Black people do not commit violent crimes against white people. 15% of any crime for 3 years committed against a white person was a black person. It just doesn't make sense, right? Black people are actually more likely to be victims of racial or violent crime by a white person than vice versa, right? We know black people are killed by black people, white people are killed by white people, Hispanics are killed by Hispanics, Asian are killed by Asian, because people get killed by people in their own communities, right? You can also see the image on the left, and you see how he used the eclipse into a racial thing, right? And that was done on purpose. Here are some other memes that you may not know were created by white supremacists that circulated, right? The first is of Hillary Clinton, right? Just making up stuff. And look at the second one. I mean, the first one, you could be like, okay, that's the white supremacist one. They're getting into politics, da 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 da. I can kind of see that. But look at the other one. Look at the second one. Right? I mean, that has nothing to do, like you'll think that has nothing to do with white supremacy. Oh, but it does. It gets people to see women as less than. It dehumanizes. And in the same way white supremacists dehumanize minorities, they want you to dehumanize women, right? Because that gets people into the movement, right? So why are they so successful? Well, they're so successful because of the news. The news doesn't check facts anymore. Right? I don't have social media, so I'm not a Facebook person. But if another adult quotes something they got off of Facebook for me, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to slam their head on the wall or slam my own head on the wall, because it's just made up stuff. And because somebody circulates it, and because it gets circulated by so many people, and because it might be a political view that you believe, people believe it, right? The other reason why they work so well is because they present themselves as being cool and tough in this counterculture. Like they are, just like taking on the system, and they are so cool. And people buy into it. The other reason is because they play on people's personal insecurities. If you are anti-feminist, or you are anti-human rights, or you are a racist, it's because you have insecurities or power issues that you have yet to deal with, right? And so they purposely play on those psychological insecurities to get people into the movement, right? And like I said before, they are super masculine, right? And they want white men who don't have friends, who have gotten bullied, who only, get on the website get on the internet to talk to people. They want people who are isolated. All right. The other example I'm going to have in this assignment is this of Dylan Roof. Now, Dylan Roof is a prime example of how white supremacists can get white boys into the movement. I just wanted to show Dylan Roof, of course, who did the shooting, who is a terrorist, who did the shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, and went to a famous church and killed 9 people because of his white supremacist views, was not always a white supremacist. He became a white supremacist after high school. His best friend all the way through high school was an African-American teenager who even spent the night at his house. Dylan Roof's parents are not racist, right? He was brought into the movement by these strategies. So what's so scary about white supremacy today than of yesterday is that these guys are way more organized than the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan, their white supremacy is based on you're born into it, you form this group. But like when we see people, the Ku Klux Klan, we think, okay, like they're inbred, they, like we've got our own little stereotypes, we kind of laugh at them. That's not the case for white supremacists today. So I want you to see that of how Dylan Roof fell into it. All right, here are some symbols that you may see white supremacists use online. This is a symbol, the moon man, right? You can kind of tell that one because it's got a neo-Nazi, but who would have thought this one, the trash dove, was a white supremacist, right? This is another example of Twitter. This guy is not a real person, but Twitter verified him to be a real celebrity, a real influencer. And guess what? He's not a real person. He's organized by a white supremacist group. And people read his stuff thinking he's real, right? And those 3 little parentheses there is a white supremacist symbol, by the way. Pepe the Frog. I had to talk to a senior student a few years ago. She put Pepe the Frog as her icon, not knowing it's a white supremacist. Pepe the Frog artist is anti-white supremacist, but he's tried to sue to get his Pepe the Frog to be used. So why are they using an image like Pepe the Frog? Because they want little kids involved in the movement, right? It's the same argument of why cigarette companies used cartoons to get kids hooked on cigarettes way back in the 90s. It's the same thing. They want you involved in believing their white supremacist views, like you can trust them, like by fifth graders. So you grow up into this movement, right? So what's my point in all this? Well, white supremacy is growing in our country. It goes along with our issues of race because you are going to face it. You're going to hear it. You're going to see it. Most of us are at home, or you're at home right now because of COVID. But if you're in school, we would have probably examples of when you've heard racist language, or sexist language or homophobic language within a week of school, right? So here's what you do. Students always ask me, well, what can I do? What can I do? Well, one, you have to speak up. If you hear something that you feel is racist or you feel is anti-woman or homophobic, you've got to say something. You got to be like, dude, that's racist, or that's not cool. You got to say something, because if you are silent, the research shows, if you don't speak up, then people that are listening will assume that it's okay. So when you speak up, you're not trying to change the mind of the person that you're speaking with. Maybe they don't even know, maybe they don't know it's that racist. Maybe they will sit and listen, but to my experience, they usually don't care. They don't want to hear it, but you will change the mindset of other people, right? Right. The other thing too is if you hear something and it deals with something at school, you've got to report it to your teacher. You've got to report it to your administrator. We have strict policies at Orange County High School, and people have the right to be safe. So I want you to know that you can always report that. The other thing too is we got to start humanizing people. We've got to start doing it in our daily lives, right? Like, I'll give you an example. Like, the one thing that drives me crazy is when the media or when adults I talk to speak about illegal immigration. One, I'm not going to talk to you about illegal immigration because there's no such thing as a human being ever being illegal, right? Language like that reinforces white supremacy. There is no such thing as somebody being illegal. We could say refugee, right? You can say immigrant, but don't you come talking to me about somebody being illegal. It's just not going to happen, right? And I also want to show you this example too. And you don't have to do it. I mean, this is stuff that has worked. In Charlottesville, anti-racist and bias activists got together and they wanted to know who were these white supremacists in this picture, right? And so they actually created this movement online of identifying the white supremacist, right? Right. And by the way, they got it worked. They got people fired from their jobs, right? If you're going to be a white supremacist, we're going to call you out for it. And we are going to make businesses either put their money up or shut up, right? It's a brilliant strategy. It actually happened in Orange, where a neo-Nazi that was working in Locust Grove got called out. He got flooded calls where he worked at because he was a neo-Nazi. But I would like to say thank you for doing this activity. You're going to end with a story of how a woman got out of the white supremacist organization, how she kind of fell into it. It's kind of crazy. If they're so anti-woman, why do so many people get involved in it? But I'm going to end the lesson with that story. So thank you so much for listening and for going through this with me.